Hello everyone and welcome back. In the next couple of minutes I'm going to show you how to get through the first couple of acts at the start of a new league as quickly as possible. I'm going to take you through my tips for speed leveling the early game on a new league. First of all, assign your movement speed skill to another key. This will allow you to use your inventory while pressing the alternative move key and keep moving while going through the game. This gives you some major speed up because you're no longer stopping every time you want to change your inventory around or change your gem links. Now I don't suggest doing this in heavily populated areas, but in the early game when there's not a great density, it's a really effective way of speeding up.
It's nice not to be dead yet.
For my second tip, whenever you're in town, do check with the vendors to make sure that they haven't got anything new that may be useful to you. In Act 1, for instance, hitting N here, double N here, will look for runner's boots. There are none, but it's a really quick way, rather than having to hover through each of the boots, to identify if there is a movement speed enhancing boot, which will help you speed up throughout the game. The other thing you want to look for is the links that you're going to use. So this character, for instance, wants green, green, red. Are there any items that I can use early game that are green, green, red? I don't tend to go for chests until I have the movement speed penalty removal, or that I'm in Act 4. So you're looking for gloves, helmet, things like that. I would avoid getting the links on your boots and weapons unless it's your only choice, as you'll tend to swap these out more frequently during the early game. And you can see here I've found a green, green, red, which will then power early jewels. It is in the weapon, so it's not optimal, but it's certainly better than nothing. On to my third tip. When I look back at the recordings for my runs, what I've noticed is that where I'm the slowest, it's always because I've spent too long in town, as I'm doing right now. The way to avoid this is to look on the PoE wiki for each of the skill gems you intend to use, find out what level you can get them and which vendor you can get them from, and then as soon as you can get into town, you can go in and search for these very, very quickly, ready to equip them. So you'll spend far less time in town in the long run. Now for my fourth tip. Now this actually seems like a really small thing, but it can be quite important. Make sure you remap the attack button off your left mouse button to a movement button, or whatever button you use for the movement. The reason for this is if you don't do this, you'll end up stopping on mobs and hitting them when you want to be running. Now early game, when there's a lot of mobs around, if you stop and start getting attacked, you can get stuck and then die. And that's the biggest cause of my deaths early game, so do try and avoid it. For my fifth tip, don't overkill the area. So in this area, we're going to kill blues only, or anything that's going to stop us getting to our goal, or any massive packs of whites. Everything else we're going to leave. Now these are going to continue to chase me, but it's not a problem. Now there's a lot here, so I'm going to kill these, just to avoid potentially dying. There's two reasons we do this. The first one is over-leveling is bad because it reduces the amount of XP that you'll get. Early game you can only be 3 levels above the content of the area before you get a penalty implied. This increases as you go through the acts. The second reason is that each time you stop you slow down your run, and every time you attack you effectively stop. For the next tip, don't go back to town after each area of the act. Go on to other areas, and this really synergizes with the other advice I gave about staying in town too long. You don't want to go back to town because you'll end up procrastinating and wasting valuable time. Now one place we will definitely go back is after this area, and that's because once we reach level 4 we can pick up a movement skill. Which brings me on to the other tip. Remember which early level quests give you a Quicksilver flask. One of them is killing this guy here. So when we go back to Nessa, we'll get a Quicksilver. Now Quicksilver will speed you up and therefore will increase your run speed. These aren't so important if you're using a powerful movement skill after level 10, such as Leap Slam, for instance. But early on they're very important. Now a lot of tips come in here. One is keep your life flasks up to date as much as possible. Doing this will prevent you from dying and therefore prevent you from slowing down. So many people run through the game with early level flasks and die too much. Next, always use Onslaught wherever possible, and that's the reason to run that side area. Whenever we do this, it doesn't give you a skill point, but it gives you a really powerful skill gem that you can't get early on without doing it. Now, if you use a witch, you can still utilize this with spells, but you can't get it as part of that side quest. So what you do for that one is roll a mule, such as the Scion, which gets one from the very start, run it to this starting area, and then recycle the character and take that skill gem. Next, movement skills. Use them a lot. Many people I know, even from my own guild, don't use movement skills when they can. In fact, some get all the way to maps without a movement skill. This is a massive waste of speed. We're in the Sunken Passage, and my 11th and penultimate tip is going to be about the tactical use of portals. I've just dropped a portal on the bridge because down here somewhere is the quest to get a skill point. Now we do want to collect that, but that will take us off the path. So if we just run straight onto the exit, we can actually keep running for quite a while, providing we don't log out or use a portal again. And that portal will stay there until this instance expires in 12 to 15 minutes. Now this will allow us to get all the way to the prison before we need to get back to town and use the portal. Okay, now we're at the prison. We just need to go back to the town, go through our portal, and we'll be right back here, and then the
I can't do this just yet.
the quest area will be here. Now at the beginning of the game, portals can be a scarce resource. So what I often do is log out, which will give you a free portal back to town. Notice as well that logging out and back in again drops us in the centre of town, really close to the vendors. Had we used a portal, we'd have come in all the way down here. And if we'd used a waypoint, we also come in back on the waypoint, as I'll show here. So for speedrunning, logging out is often the best way to do it, unless there's a tactical reason to use a portal early on. And the last of my tips, and probably the most important one, is to practice. I do this on solo self-found in a separate instance, and you can practice running through the earlier acts with no gear just to see if you can scale that up and see if it'll work as a league starter. Now when you have finished with your practice session, being in solo self-found has this migrate all option. When you do this, it will move all your stash tabs and your character into the main league that this is spawned off of. So in this case, we'll go back to Harvest. But it also resets all of the crafting recipes and all of the Trials of Ascendancy. So it really is like the whole instance has just reset. So it's perfect for testing league starts. Now the only thing I would suggest while you're practicing this, because the specific league mechanics will not be in your next league starter probably early on, you should probably avoid these to prevent yourself getting too powerful off the league mechanics which may not exist in the next league. This list is by no means exhaustive, so if you do want to see more tips like this, then please let me know in the comments below or leave a like on this video. Now I'm by no means the fastest at running through the acts. Compared to the races, I'm actually really slow. But I do get by in a fairly quick time. For my third tip, when I look back at the recordings of my runs, now on to my third tip. When I look back at the recordings of my runs, you've been watching Altec 2K. Thank you for watching.